My name is Rose Miller. I'm 60 years old, a widow, living in a small, peaceful town in Oregon. Most mornings, I drink my coffee by the kitchen window, listening to the birds and the sound of life waking up slowly. I've worked as an office manager at a small law firm for almost 20 years, raised 2 children, Emily and Luke, and spent most of my life making sure they never had to face the hardships I once did. Last Tuesday began like any other, until I opened my laptop. There it was, an email from Emily. No subject line, just her name. I smiled. Thought maybe it was about her upcoming wedding. She'd been planning it for months. I'd already helped her with $30,000 for the venue, the flowers, the photographer she'd always dreamed of. But when I opened that message, my smile faded. Mom, it began, not dear Mom, just Mom. She wrote that after long discussions with her fiancé and his parents, they decided I wouldn't be attending the ceremony in Napa Valley. Too many guests, she said. It's better if you watch through the live stream. It'll be just like being there. LOL. That LOL hit harder than anything else. I stared at the screen until my coffee went cold. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. Something inside me just shifted. And I typed only 4 words in reply. Sure. Enjoy your big day. I closed the laptop. And that was the moment I realized maybe all my sacrifices hadn't meant what I thought they did. The drive to work that morning felt different. The Oregon air was cold, but I barely noticed. My thoughts were louder than the radio. How did we get here? I'd worked for nearly 2 decades at Caldwell and Walker Law. After my husband passed, that job became my anchor. I worked overtime, skipped holidays, gave up everything that was for me. I told myself it was for my children's future. When Emily needed more tuition money after changing majors, I paid. When she moved across the country for a job that didn't last, I paid her deposit. When Luke bought his first house, I co-signed the loan and gave him $10,000 to help. I never kept score. I thought that was what mothers did. But that morning, sitting at my desk, I felt like a stranger in my own life. My boss, Robert, a kind man who always remembers my coffee order, noticed something was wrong. You look like you've seen a ghost, he said, placing a latte on my desk. I wanted to tell him everything, but instead I just said, didn't sleep well. That small act, a cup of coffee and silence, almost broke me. By lunch, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Emily's name again and again. Mom, please call me, we need to talk. But I didn't answer. For once in my life, I let the silence do the talking. That afternoon, I drove to the bank, sat down across from Carlos, the manager who's helped me for years. I'd like to cancel a wire transfer, I said calmly. The one for the Napa wedding. He blinked. Are you sure, Mrs. Miller? That's $50,000. I nodded. I'm sure. When I left the bank, the sky was gray, but somehow lighter. By the time I got home, there were missed calls. 9 from Emily, 2 from Luke, 1 voicemail. Mom, please don't do this. I turned off my phone, poured a glass of red wine, and sat on the porch as the sun disappeared behind the trees. I thought about every birthday I planned alone, every holiday dinner waiting for a call that never came, all the little sacrifices, the shoes I never bought, the vacations I skipped, the dreams I shelved. And I whispered to myself, this time, Rose, you don't have to fix it. That night, when the doorbell rang, I almost ignored it. But I opened it, and there stood Luke, still in his work clothes, holding his phone like a weapon. Mom, Emily says you're not coming to the wedding. What's going on? I said, she told me to watch it online. He sighed. You know how Andrew's parents are traditional? Traditional? I laughed quietly. I already paid $30,000. Was about to send another $50. That's not tradition. That's business. His face went pale. Wait, you were sending another 50? Was. Not anymore. Mom, they're counting on that. You can't just... I can, I said calmly, because I'm done being treated like an open checkbook. He raised his voice. Mom, you always make everything about yourself. That's when I finally stood tall. Get out of my house, Luke. He froze. Mom? Out, I said, quietly but firmly. When the door closed behind him, I stood in silence, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free.
I opened it. Mom, she wrote, I know you're upset about the live stream thing, but this is extreme. We've lost the venue deposit. The caterer might cancel. Andrew's parents say you're being unreasonable. Please don't do this. We can talk about you attending the ceremony after the payment goes through. There it was. Not love, not regret, a bargain. My presence was suddenly negotiable, depending on how much I was willing to pay. I didn't respond. I simply closed the email, turned back to my work, and took a deep breath. Around noon, Robert stopped by my desk again. Lunch? He asked. There's a new Italian place nearby. Normally, I would have said no. But that day, I said yes. Over warm pasta and soft music, he told me stories about his grandkids, the way they ran around the house, how exhausting but beautiful it was. Then he looked at me gently. Forgive me, Rose, he said, but you seem lighter today. I surprised myself by telling him everything about Emily, the wedding, the money, the choice I made. He listened quietly, then said, sometimes love means setting boundaries, especially with the people we've given the most to. And I felt something inside me ease, like a knot slowly coming undone. That evening, when I got home, the sun was setting behind the trees, but there was someone sitting on my porch steps. It was Sophia, Emily's best friend since childhood. She stood up quickly when she saw me. Mrs. Miller, I'm so sorry to just drop by. I invited her in. The kettle hissed softly as I poured water for tea. I asked, Emily sent you? She hesitated, then nodded. She's a mess, she said quietly. They lost the venue, the florist quit. Andrew's parents are threatening to cancel everything. She doesn't know what to do. I said nothing, just placed a cup in front of her. She asked me to come, she continued, to see if there's anything she can say to change her mind. I looked at the steam rising between us. Was there anything? Would an apology fix the way it felt? To be used? To be pushed aside? To be loved only when convenient? No, I said finally. There isn't. Sophia's shoulders dropped. Not even if she apologizes? I smiled softly. Words are easy, dear, especially when people are desperate. But real love, real respect, it doesn't wait until you stop giving to notice you exist. She nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. I understand, even if she doesn't. We sat in silence for a while, two women from different worlds, united by the quiet understanding that love without respect isn't love. When she left, she hugged me gently, and I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was simply done. The wedding never happened the way they planned. They found a small backyard for a modest ceremony. I wasn't invited, and this time, I didn't need to be. Weeks later, Emily sent one last email. Half apology, half excuse. I read it once, then archived it. I wasn't bitter, I wasn't broken, just peaceful. For the first time in decades, I woke up without wondering who needed something from me, without feeling guilty for resting. I joined a pottery class. I read novels on my porch. I laughed again, real laughter, the kind that doesn't come from pleasing others. And I learned something I wish I'd known years ago. You don't have to burn yourself to keep others warm. Sometimes the strongest kind of love is the one you finally give to yourself.